At dinner, my twin announced his engagement, then my dad humiliated me in front of everyone. 6 months later, he was on his knees begging for help. Let me tell you about the night I realized my family never really loved me. They just tolerated my existence next to my better twin. Ian, 36. My twin brother's name is Marcus. And while we share a face, we could not have lived more different lives. Marcus was the golden child. He got better grades, more friends, was a star athlete, and could charm a room with a wink. Me? I was average. Quiet. I worked hard but never shined quite like him. My parents didn't even try to hide the favoritism. Growing up, I lost count of how many times I heard, "Why can't you be more like Marcus?" I thought maybe, just maybe, it would change when we got older. It didn't. I got married at 24 to my college sweetheart. We had a good run, but after a decade, we quietly parted ways. No cheating, no big drama. We just grew into different people. Meanwhile, Marcus was dating a woman named Claire. My parents adored her. You'd think she was royalty by how they fawned over her. Then came the dinner. Before we go further, don't forget to like this story, hit subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss what happens next. Mom sent out a message in our family group chat inviting everyone over for a special announcement. I almost didn't go. I wish I hadn't. But, hope is a stupid thing. It keeps you showing up, thinking maybe this time it'll be different. It wasn't. Everyone was already at the table when I walked in. Marcus, Claire, our sister and her kids, my aunts and uncles. I sat quietly, trying to disappear into the background like usual. Halfway through dinner, Marcus clinked his glass and stood up. "I have some news," he said, beaming. "Claire and I are engaged." The room exploded in applause. I clapped too, genuinely happy for him. Whatever else, he's still my brother. But then, Dad stood up. He was 3 beers deep, smiling ear to ear, and then he looked straight at me and said, "Finally, one son who isn't a complete disappointment. Unlike this pathetic excuse who can't even keep a wife." The whole table went dead silent for 2 seconds. Then my mom piped up, "We should have picked just one embryo. We knew which one was going to be the failure." And everyone laughed. Even my niece. My 12-year-old niece pointed at me and giggled like I was the punchline to a joke. I looked around the table. No one looked uncomfortable. No one tried to stop it. Not even Marcus. He just looked smug. Like, better you than me. I counted to 15 in my head. Stood up. Smiled. One of those fake, frozen smiles you give when you suddenly see everything clearly. I left $40 on the table for my dinner and walked out. No scene. No drama. Just done. Before I even got to my car, the messages started pouring in. "Come on, it was just a joke. You're being too sensitive. Don't ruin Marcus's night. Man up." That was the moment something inside me snapped. Or maybe healed. Either way, something changed. That night, I blocked every family member from my phone and social media. Every single one. The only exception was my cousin Lily. She wasn't at dinner and had always been decent to me. Then I disappeared. The first few days after I cut everyone off were weird, quiet, peaceful, but also unsettling. You don't realize how much noise your family makes in your life until you hit block on all of them. No daily guilt trip texts. No unsolicited opinions. No backhanded, just checking in messages that spiral into passive-aggressive jabs. Just silence. And at first, it felt almost wrong. Like I was walking through an empty house where every room used to be filled with chaos, and now it was just echoes. But that silence? That was the sound of me finally having space to think. I kept expecting someone to show up at my door. Or maybe send a handwritten apology letter. Something. Anything. But nothing came. Marcus didn't text. My mom didn't call. My dad didn't even pretend to care. And that told me everything I needed to know. I wasn't missed. I wasn't even a thought in their minds beyond being the joke at dinner. They were never going to apologize. Because in their version of the story, I was the problem. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to be the problem anymore. I was going to disappear completely. I moved out of the city. Took a remote job offer I'd been sitting on for months. Bought a little cabin upstate. Quiet, old school, nothing fancy, but it was mine. No one knew where I was except my cousin Lily. And she only knew because she was the one who helped me find the place. I spent the first few weeks getting used to the quiet. It was the kind of silence that used to terrify me. Now it felt like peace. I'd wake up to the sound of birds instead of my mom's passive-aggressive voice on speakerphone. I started cooking again, reading, hiking, sleeping through the night for the first time in years. And for once, I wasn't constantly bracing for impact. Then, around the third month, Lily texted me. "Hey, I didn't want to be the messenger, but thought you should know. Marcus and Claire? Yeah, they broke up." I stared at the message, confused. What? They just got engaged. Yeah, turns out she found some stuff. Financial stuff. Lies. And apparently, someone else. Classic Marcus. Charming on the outside, hollow underneath. Always chasing the next best thing. He had a habit of cheating emotionally at first, and then physically. But he always got away with it. Because he had that smile. That Marcus magic that made people want to believe the best in him. Claire, I guess, didn't fall for it. Not entirely. I didn't feel satisfaction. Or revenge. Just confirmation. That everything my parents celebrated? Everything they put above me? It was fragile. A house of cards waiting to collapse. And collapse it did. A few days later, I got another text from Lily. "So, Dad lost his job. Your mom's been calling around asking if anyone can help with mortgage payments. They're kind of falling apart." I didn't respond. Because let me be clear, I didn't want them to suffer. That was never the goal. I just wanted peace. But there's something deeply revealing about watching people who once called you a failure suddenly fall apart without the person they used to blame everything on. When I left, I took the blame with me. And without me, they had nothing to hide behind. Then came the letter. Not an email. Not a text. A letter. Handwritten. From my father. The envelope was thick. Expensive stationery. Classic him. I let it sit on my kitchen table for 3 days before I even opened it. I don't know what I expected. Maybe some half-hearted apology. Or more blame. But what I got was desperation. "Ian, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. And I deserve that. I didn't see it at the time, but I see it now. What we said at that dinner. What I said, it was cruel. And I was wrong. Marcus, he's not who we thought he was. Everything is falling apart. Your mother is sick. The house is under review for foreclosure. And I can't do this without help. You were always steady, reliable, the one who kept everything running. I didn't appreciate it then, but I do now. I'm not asking for money. Just a conversation. Please." I read it 3 times. Then I folded it up, set it back in the envelope, and slid it into the drawer where I keep receipts I know I'll never use. Because even though he said he wasn't asking for money, he was. He just didn't have the spine to write the actual words. And here's the thing. If he had written that same letter before the dinner, before the humiliation, I might have helped. But you don't get to break someone and then ask them to build you a house with the pieces. The next week, Lily came to visit. We made tea, sat on the porch, and watched the sun dip behind the trees. She looked at me like she was seeing a different person. "You look peaceful," she said. "I feel peaceful," I replied. She hesitated for a second, then said, "They miss you, you know." "I don't think they miss me," I said quietly. "I think they miss the version of me they could use." She didn't argue, just nodded. And here's the thing. I still carry grief. Not for the people they are, but for the family I wish they were. I grieve the version of my dad who would have stood up for me instead of tearing me down. The version of my mom who would have wrapped her arms around me and told me I mattered. The version of Marcus who would have been a real brother, not just a rival wearing my face. But grief is just love with nowhere to go. So I let it rest in the silence. In the space I've carved out for myself. In the life I've rebuilt not in spite of them, but without them. And every day, I choose that peace again. 6 months. That's how long it had been since the dinner. 6 months of silence. 6 months of healing, rebuilding, and finally finding peace. But peace is a fragile thing, especially when the past still knows where you live. It was a gray Saturday morning. I was standing on my porch, coffee in one hand, watching the trees sway gently in the breeze. The air smelled like rain and pine. I hadn't checked my phone in hours, and I didn't need to. That was the beauty of life now. No more buzzing drama. No chaos dressed up as family. I was mid-sip when I heard gravel crunching. I turned my head and froze. There he was, my father, walking slowly up the gravel path to my cabin. His once pristine slacks were creased. The man who always had a commanding presence looked smaller. Shoulders slumped. Hair more gray than I remembered. He wasn't alone, either. My mom sat in the passenger seat of a beat-up minivan parked by the trees. I could barely recognize her. No makeup, hair pulled back, her face pale and tight. I stayed still. He stopped about 10 feet from my porch. "Ian," he said, voice raspy. "Please. I just need a few minutes." I didn't say anything. I didn't move. He shifted awkwardly, hands clasped in front of him like he was preparing to bow. "I know what you're thinking. That I don't deserve to be here. And you're right." Still, I said nothing. He stepped closer. 2 feet from the porch now. His voice cracked. "We've lost everything." I finally spoke. "That's not my fault." He looked up at me, eyes glassy. I know that now. You were the only one who ever kept this family together. And we broke you." Silence. He looked down, shook his head. "After you left, everything fell apart. Marcus, he moved to Texas. Hasn't called in months. Claire wants nothing to do with us. We're defaulting on the house. Your mom's medical bills. We can't keep up." I didn't flinch. Because this wasn't a surprise. Lily had told me things were bad. I just didn't expect to see it like this. Him, standing here, shoulders hunched, pleading. "I'm not here to beg," he said, and then immediately contradicted himself by getting down on one knee. "I just need you to know I'm sorry. Truly. For everything. What I said at that dinner, it wasn't just wrong, it was evil. I was jealous. Jealous that Marcus had flash and sparkle, and you had something better. You had substance. And I punished you for it." He was crying now. Actual tears, not the manipulative kind my mom specialized in. This was different. Real? Maybe. But I didn't soften. Not yet. I crossed my arms. "You didn't just humiliate me. You made me believe I was worthless for years. And the second I stopped paying for your life, I was disposable." I know. He didn't defend. Didn't redirect. Just sat there, knees in the dirt, breathing heavy. "I don't have anything left to offer you," I said. He looked up. "I'm not here to ask for money." I raised an eyebrow. He hesitated. "Okay, not just money. I'm asking for a relationship. A chance to rebuild. I want to earn your forgiveness." I stared at him for a long time. Then I said the one thing I hadn't said to him in years. "Stand up." He did, slowly, like the weight of his actions had finally caught up with him. "I'm not promising anything," I said. "You don't get to waltz back in because life got hard. You earn trust through consistency. And you've got a mountain of damage to climb." He nodded. Then I said something that surprised even me. "Start by apologizing to Lily." His brows furrowed. "Lily. She's the only one in this family who treated me with respect. She helped me disappear so I could breathe. You want to rebuild? Start with owning the pain you caused more than just me." He nodded again. "Okay, I will." I pointed toward the car. "And tell her to come up." He blinked. "Your mom. She can stay in the car." "Lily." He looked back, confused. But sure enough, the passenger door opened, and my cousin Lily stepped out. My mother wasn't even there. Hadn't come at all. Typical. Lily walked up and gave me a small smile. "He said he needed a ride," she said quietly. "Didn't tell me where we were going until we got close." "You knew I wouldn't have answered otherwise," I replied, not angry, just stating the truth. She shrugged. "Guilty." I turned back to my dad. "You have a lot of work to do. Words are cheap. Prove you've changed. Not to me. To yourself." He looked like he wanted to say something more, but stopped himself. Instead, he nodded once, turned, and walked back to the car with Lily behind him. Later that night, I sat on my porch again, watching the sunset. My mind was spinning, not because I was tempted to go back, but because I had finally seen the one thing I never thought I'd see, my father. On his knees, begging. Not for money, not for status, but for me. And that was something I never imagined. It didn't erase the past, didn't undo the trauma, didn't fix what was broken, but it proved one thing: even the ones who act like gods can fall. And sometimes they fall at the feet of the ones they buried. After my father left that day, dirt on his pants, pride in his hands, I didn't feel triumphant. There wasn't some movie moment where I shouted, "That's what you get." There was no dramatic music, no mic drop. What I felt was something quieter and heavier. Responsibility. Not for him, not for my family, but for myself, for my peace. Because now that I had stood my ground and refused to play the good son again, I knew they were going to come at me differently. Not with cruelty, with strategy, guilt, nostalgia. Let's start fresh. And that's what scared me the most. Because I've seen how easy it is to fall back into old roles when people start pretending to change. 2 weeks passed. Lily kept in touch. She told me my dad had started therapy, voluntarily. Said he wanted to unpack years of damage. That word made me snort laugh. Unpack? Like the damage he caused was just a messy suitcase he forgot to close? Still, I let her talk. I didn't argue, didn't dismiss it. I just listened. That was something new for me. Listening without obligation, without the burden of fixing, without preparing to forgive someone just because they said the magic words. Then one afternoon, Lily showed up at my place unannounced. She brought peach cobbler and 2 beers. That was her version of a peace offering. We sat on the porch again. It had become our place. Dad's different, she said, finally. Not overnight. But it's not fake this time. He's quiet, reflective. It's strange. I didn't answer right away. I stared out into the trees, letting the wind fill the silence. You know what's strange to me? I finally said. How it took total collapse for him to even see me. Not just treat me better, but see me. Lily nodded. He said something the other day. Said if Marcus had fallen apart first, he probably wouldn't have changed. That your silence scared him more than your anger. That hit me harder than I expected. Because it was true. When I stopped reacting, stopped defending myself, stopped arguing, they lost control. And in that void, they were finally forced to sit with what they'd done. About a week later, I got a letter. Another one. Not from my dad this time. From Marcus. I almost tossed it in the trash. I even held it over the bin for a good minute. But curiosity got the better of me. His handwriting hadn't changed. Still sharp, slanted, a little too perfect. The letter started with a joke. Of course it did. Hey Ian, if you're reading this, I guess you haven't set the paper on fire yet. That's a win already. He went on to talk about Claire, how things ended. He admitted to cheating. Again, said it started as a mistake, but then turned into a pattern he couldn't stop. Classic Marcus. Always turning accountability into a sob story. But then came the part that stopped me cold. I was jealous of you. Not because of anything you had, but because of who you were. You didn't need to be the center of attention to be important. You worked hard. You were kind. People trusted you. And I knew deep down that I could never be that. So I made fun of you. I let others do it too. Because if I laughed at you, it meant I didn't have to look at myself. I'm sorry. I really am. I don't expect anything. I just wanted to say it. That part felt real. I folded the letter and put it in my desk. Not because I forgave him, but because it was the first time I'd seen actual honesty from him in decades. And honesty, even delayed, deserves to be remembered. Meanwhile, I kept building my new life. I started freelancing again, graphic design, branding, web work. Took on projects that actually excited me. I adopted a dog from the local shelter, a scruffy mutt named Theo who had trust issues just like me. We understood each other instantly. I started volunteering at a nearby youth center once a week, helping kids with resumes, college apps, whatever they needed. Giving without being used. Supporting without being drained. And most importantly, I was happy. Not the Instagram version of happy. The kind that doesn't need an audience. Then one night, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. Later, I played it. It was my mom. Hi Ian. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from. I don't expect you to respond. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I wasn't a mother to you. I was a judge. And I punished you for things you didn't do. For not being someone you never agreed to be. If you ever decide to speak to me, I'll be here. I didn't cry. I didn't feel vindicated. I just sat there. Because for once, she wasn't crying. She wasn't manipulating. She wasn't twisting guilt into love. She was just a person. A flawed, broken person realizing too late that she drove away her son. And while I didn't call back, I didn't delete the message either. Because that, too, was a kind of progress. Here's what I know now. Rebuilding doesn't mean returning. It doesn't mean going back to the people who broke you just because they finally admit it. It means building a life so full, so whole, that their absence no longer feels like a wound. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want power. I wanted peace. And I earned it. Not through rage. Not through spite. But through silence, space, and self-respect. And if they ever want to be in my life again, it'll be on my terms. Because I'm no longer the disappointment. I'm the proof that you can rise, even when the people closest to you try to keep you small. When you finally stop chasing the people who hurt you, something strange happens. You start noticing the people who never left. People like Lily, who didn't just listen, but protected my space when I couldn't even name what I needed. Or like the old woman who ran the local diner down the road from my cabin, who always slid an extra muffin into my takeout bag without saying a word. Even Theo, my scruffy, stubborn, slightly dramatic mutt, became more family to me than anyone who shared my blood. Turns out, you don't need matching DNA to find your people. You just need respect, consistency, and love that isn't laced with conditions. A few weeks after my mom's voicemail, I found myself doing something unexpected. I invited Lily, my coworker Jake, and a few of the people from the youth center over for a backyard cookout. Nothing fancy, just grilled food, music, laughter, and zero emotional manipulation. It was the first time in years I'd hosted anyone. And I mean really hosted. Not out of obligation. Not because I was trying to win approval. But because I wanted to share the life I'd built with people who actually saw me. And in that backyard, as string lights swayed above us and Theo begged for hot dogs with his sad puppy eyes, I had a realization. This is what family feels like. Not pressure. Not shame. Not favoritism dressed up as love. Just warmth. Presence. Real connection. Later that night, after everyone left and I was cleaning up empty bottles and paper plates, Lily came out to help. She leaned against the porch railing and watched the stars for a second. You know, she said, if 18-year-old Ian could see you now, I think he'd cry. I smiled. He'd probably still be waiting for someone to yell at him for doing it wrong. She nudged my shoulder. Not anymore. We stood there in silence for a while, and I thought about everything I'd survived to get to that moment. The public humiliation, the years of being compared to Marcus, the way my parents laughed at me like I was the family joke. And now? My dad was in therapy. My mom was quiet. Marcus had vanished into another new city with another new woman. And me? I was here, alive, at peace, and healing. A few days later, I got a letter in the mail, handwritten. But this one wasn't from anyone in my past. It was from a kid I'd been mentoring at the youth center. A teenager named Jamal. Bright, a little guarded, but with so much potential. We'd been working on his resume and college applications for weeks. I just wanted to say thanks, it read. You treat me like I matter. Like I'm not a screw-up. I didn't think anyone saw me like that before. I hope I can be like you someday. I sat there for a long time after reading it, because I knew what it meant to not feel seen. And somehow, all the pain I'd been through, all the isolation, the rejection, it had turned into something good. Something useful. Something that could help someone else not feel alone. And that made every hard step worth it. I never responded to my mom's voicemail. Never wrote back to Marcus again. But I didn't hate them. I didn't wish them pain. I just let go. Because you can't force someone to love you the way you deserve. And you don't need their permission to heal. You just need the courage to walk away and the patience to rebuild. And when you do, you'll find people who never make you beg for a seat at the table. People who don't point and laugh when you're vulnerable. People who know your worth, even if you forget it sometimes. That's family. So no, I'm not the disappointment. I'm the one who chose peace when everyone else was busy choosing pride. And I'd do it all again. Because the family I lost could never compare to the one I found.